What is up, everybody? Today we have a huge game to talk about, so no stupid intro. This is the 15th Chun Lan Cup that just happened yesterday. This is the final game between Yang Kaiwen and Park Junghwan. So in the first game, Yang Kaiwen absolutely dominated Park, and he won the first game. But the second game, it was a very tight game where Yang Kaiwen had a big chance of winning, but eventually he blundered towards the end game, and Park got a game back. So this brings them to 1-1. This is the final game. So whoever wins this game will become the champion for the Chun Lan Cup. And I believe for Yang Kaiwen, this would be his first time being the champion, the world champion, if he wins this game. So very exciting. Yang Kaiwen starts as black. Park's playing as white. Yang Kaiwen starts out with a very unconventional 3-4 and a 3-3 combination with a big Kema opening. Park follows up with a Kema as well, and Yang Kaiwen decides to play a very traditional AI Joseki. White Ataris, black connects, white connects, and black blocks, just like how you play in this Joseki. So here, white pushes on top, black extends. The normal follow-up in this locally is for white to push, but this wouldn't be a great idea because black can just Hane. Now, because black can Hane, this push would not be a great idea. The reason is that you can't really cut over here. So if you cut, then this fight is not going to be great. Usually this is a great fight for white, but because of how close the black stone is here, this is when white turns over here, you'll realize that this stone will absolutely destroy white. So white cannot go for this variation, and therefore, in the actual game, white would play the small knight. Black hops in, destroying white's moyo, white's attacking from behind. So at this point, for amateur level player, we would just be rushing to get out, but that's not what Yang Kaiwen has played in the actual game. He plays a splitting move. There leaves a 2-space extension and also expanding himself on the bottom. So here, if white decides to attack black like this would be very threatening for amateur level player like myself. I might even die inside, but for their level, living inside is a joke, right? So first of all, we follow our principle of invasion. We attach our opponent, and then we hop out, giving ourselves a lot of options. We're looking at the clamp over here. We're looking at hopping out. So if you keep attacking me, then I can attach you again, and there's plenty of ice space. So for them, this is a joke to live inside, while we think it is pretty hard. Therefore, in the actual game, Park knows that. He decided to not immediately deal with the stone. Black pushes up, white extends down. So back in the days, you would just like extend up, but this is not so good because black can hop out, and there's also like a connection move over here. These days, AI will suggest you, why not just block? The reason we didn't want to play the block back then is, well, when we play the Hane, this is very intense. Like, this is very bad for white because white has a shortage of liberty. But these days, AI is just like, well, let's cut, and then black is in trouble. So black can obviously play like this, but it's just a little difficult because white has so many stones on the outside. So this is a tough fight for black, although still playable. Here, another variation is for black just extend, right? If you push, I can just push. If you get out, then maybe I can just jump out like this. Nothing wrong with this variation. Not what Yang Kaiwen has played in the actual game. He decided to play a more flexible move by poking at white here. So for us, we would just block, right? But for professional player, this is not even acceptable to block here. It's way too passive. Because white has already 2 stones over here, is quite strong. So white decides to attack black stone. Black cuts off, and white plays the Kema, making sure that the 2 stones are controlled. Black Hanes, white Hanes, and black extends out. White pushes from behind. So looking a little weird, but this is actually very natural for both players because they're just so good at this game. So here, what black cannot play is to push. And this is our first intuition. A lot of players will be like, well, let's try to connect the groups. If you connect the groups, white is going to wedge. Black Ataris, white connects. Black connects the corner. And now white blocks. Black needs to capture the cutting stone, but then white has a very painful Atari from behind. if black tries to struggle like this would be not great because white has a flip Atari right now. Black cannot extend because white can connect. Now there's a miai of Ataring on the first line and also blocking on the second line, and black is just collapsing. Therefore, black has to capture, white Ataris, black connects, white connects. And now as we can see, black is super heavy with not many eye space. There's half an eye over here, meaning that black can spend a move to get an eye, but black still has to run out. As black runs out, this stone is probably going to die naturally, and this is definitely a leading game for white. Maybe a better option is for black just to capture, white Ataris, and place the tiger's mouth. Still, it's a little bit heavy for black over here. If black lives, this is very inefficient, but if it doesn't, it's not completely alive. So still very awkward for black. While if you look at white, it's a lot of territory, very solid shape. So definitely not what Yang Kaiwen wanted to play either. So directly trying to connect for black does not work. Therefore, it's better just to play indirect moves like what Yang did in the game. He decided to attach into the 3-3. Now, if white honeys, that would be falling into a trap, and this could be game over very quickly because black can push on top. When white wedges, black Ataris, white connects, and now black, thanks to this magic exchange, black can block here. Now white cannot cut, and therefore black is all connected, and that's pretty much game over for players of their level. Of course, Park would not fall for such an obvious trap, and in the actual game he extends on the second line. Very nice, very patient move. Yang Kaiwen tries to live the corner, white extends, making sure that he's disconnecting the two groups. So here black cannot rush to live the corner because when black rushes to live the corner, white Ataris, black connects, and white gets rid of one eye, forcing black to live in the corner, and then white will push on top, and this would be super difficult for black. First of all, these 4 stones, I'm not sure if they can live at all, but if they struggle to live, then for example, if you manage to somehow live in here, okay, and you know, let's say you live like this, then I can just cap on top. And then because of how thick white is, this stone is probably just dead. And the game is kind of over at this point. So rushing to live the corner is a bad idea. Therefore, in the actual game, Yang plays correctly by pushing the group out. First saving the group over here, giving some help to this stone, right? Trying to connect the stone and leave the corner hanging. White Ataris, black plays the ko, white takes, and black plays the ko threat on the second line. There's no way for white to respond to this, and therefore he claims the profit in the corner. That's the correct way of playing. Yang Kaiwen Ataris on top, completely breaking white into pieces here. So at this point, there is basically a trade. Black sacrifices the corner for the influence on the right side. White approaches black's 3-3 stone, black answers. White pushes on top, and black honeys, white cuts. Black extends, white kicks. This is the shape move. Black has to extend onto the second line to maximize or to optimize the profits over here. White blocks, black honeys, and now white connects on top. So the reason you don't want to do either Atari is because if you Atari this way, then we can see that this is too much profit for black. So white does not want to sacrifice the 2 stones yet. But if you Atari from this side, this is also problematic. Yes, maybe you can manage to save the group over here, but that's not really a good idea because when black jumps down, there's a lot of profit that black got over here, but also your group here is not completely safe. And this group is kind of against a nuclear center that black has built over here, and therefore this is not pleasant for white either. So instead of making a decision immediately over here, Park decided to just connect and making sure that, you know, there's a cutting point for black over here. Black extends, white cuts. This is a sente because there's an Atari, therefore black has to play a tiger's mouth. White attaches, black extends, and now white honeys on top. Black honeys, white Ataris, black connects, Atari again, connect again. And now white placed the bamboo shape to get the 2 stones out, making sure that these 3 stones are in trouble. And now Yang Kaiwen decides to live the stone here, because otherwise any capping move would be so big and it's not very easy for black to live. Yang Kaiwen plays the shoulder hit, a very nice move to trying to live. So here is a place for different professionals to diverge in their approach. So if you're playing against, say, Asami Ueno, she wouldn't even think, right? She would just play the capping move here and trying to kill you because that's her style. All what she does is life and death, and there's no way for her to miss this opportunity to slaughter black in here. And it's very dangerous when you reach this type of position against Asami Ueno. Because if you block, white's going to extend. When you hop out, I can just cap you inside. How is black going to live, right? So there's not enough ice space on the bottom. And you have to figure out something. You have to figure out some magic over here to live. So not very easy. But here we can tell that Park is not really that type of absolute like aggression type of player. Instead, he played very balanced, getting rid of black ice space, letting black float, and then attack black to gain profits. Yang Kaiwen hops out, very beautiful move, black caps, and now black jumps to form, as already see that there's some like ice space over here. It's looking great for black. White peeps, black connects, and now white makes an exchange on the second line. It's not really relevant as an exchange. And instead of breaking black's ice space over here, which is what a lot of players would have played, because not only this gains some territory, but also breaks black's ice space, making sure it's very difficult for black to live. And this is what a lot of players would have played. Park decided to absolutely gain control of the game and play on the outside, making sure that black is capped inside. And also, like, these 4 stones are like safer thanks to this stone. Black honeys, white honeys, and now black trying to create some aji on the outside. White push, black pushes, and white cuts. Atari connect. And now here is probably the moment where Yang Kaiwen has played his first mistake in the game. So, well, it's not really a huge mistake or fatal mistake. But this move is definitely a little bit problematic. A better move here for Yang Kaiwen is to play the Kosumi. So this Kosumi is aiming at the push and cut, and therefore white has to defend it. And now black can extend, and now we can see that black's ice space looking very, very strong. And it's just very easy for black to manage to live inside. Now let's look at the actual game. When black pushes like this, the problem with this move is now Park played correctly and took the vital point. This move not only makes white really strong here, but also it's poking at black's eye shape. And this makes black really, it's very uncomfortable for black after this move. Black connects, and now white extends because there's a lot of weakness when black honeys. Therefore, white needs to play a move to fix the weakness. But what's great for white is that he can play the second line extension to fix his weakness. This move is very threatening towards the corner that black has over here. And because of this very efficient fixing move, black is slightly behind because he still has to manage to live the group. He will have no problem living the group. The problem is that when white comes down to attack this group, thanks to this zone, there's a lot of profits that white can gain from doing that. Black honeys, white connects, and now black tries to live the group by playing these moves. White now plays the Kosumi, squeezing black's ice space, and now black plays a very nice Tsuji. It doesn't really increase the win rate with this Tsuji for black, but this is still a very nice Tsuji. So the idea behind the Tsuji is if black plays the block, white plays the block, black will cut. And now if white tries to break black's ice space, black can run out like this. White connects, black will also connect. This is threatening to capture the 5 stones, and therefore white has to protect. And then as we can see, the 5 white stones are isolated, and this is a little bit dangerous for white. So when black plays the wedge, this is a very nice move to try to live the group. If you don't play this variation, instead you just try to block, this is also a good variation. The problem with this variation though is that black is not completely alive. So when white clams, black connects. White pushes, black blocks. White can take the vital point away from black. So black only has one eye on top. And when black tries to make the second eye, white can play the Hane. And then because of how thick white is, white actually has a flip Atari on the first line. And therefore, black is not alive locally. Maybe this variation is not going to work immediately for white because of the outside weaknesses. But this is always a very serious threat that black has to watch out. And that's why, after reading out this variation, Yang Kaiwen decided to play the wedge here. And that's a very nice local to Tsuji. The reason it doesn't really gain any win rate is because when white pushes on top, yes, your group is like safe for now, but then there's a very serious Hane here. So now Yang Kaiwen decides to push, making sure that his group is fine. White peeps once again, black Ataris, white extends, and black pushes on top. This is all Sente moves, white connect. So at this point, black cannot really rush to live because even if black lives comfortably, the problem is with the upper left corner. White can Hane, double Hane, and after a few exchanges, we can see that not only black stone on the third line is completely captured, but also later on the worst problem, or very, very sad for black, is that later on this turn is a Sente. Black has to exchange this versus this. This is a lot of points for white, but this is just 1 point, minus 1 point inside black's territory. So black cannot allow this variation to happen. Therefore, in the actual game, Yang Kaiwen decides to extend out. It's a giant move, making sure that his corner and side is very comfortable. And then whatever happens here, he's going to deal with it. And of course, I mean, he has read out many variations to making sure that this group is actually alive. White pushes, black Hanes, white Hanes. So here you cannot cut because then black extends. White's going to actually lose the Liberty fight. So that would be a blunder. The correct move is to play the Hane. Black now jumps. White plays the fixing move. So if you just try to attack black, black will connect here. When white connects, black Ataris, and white pushes like this. Yes, locally it's true that you are able to kill black's group over here, but after black takes the two stones over here, we can see there's tremendous profit that black gained over here as well. The worst problem is that there is a push and cut, forcing white to spend an extra move to capture the group in Gote. Yes, you gain maybe 30 points or 35 points, but then when black takes the momentum over here, these 5 stones are in trouble. But if you run these 5 stones, this will mean that black will gain way more than 35 points on the right side. So this is not an acceptable variation for white at all. So you cannot play like this as white. That explains to you why Park Junghwan decided to play this move. So it's looking at killing black inside, but also this move has a lot of value against the group over here. So that's the correct move to play. Finally, Yang comes back and live the group, because otherwise the group will be dead. White Hanes, black Hanes, double Hane, very nice sequence, and black has to connect towards the corner, and now white has to jump out. So if you rush to ladder black over here, black's gonna come back and capture the group over here, and he's gonna be leading in territory. So white doesn't have time to ladder the stone yet. And now white decides to play the 2-space extension to make sure that these 3 stones are doing okay. Here, this is probably an inaccuracy for Park. An easier variation to manage is probably for Park to play the splitting move. This is almost a splitting move. So if black pincers from the side over here, white can come back, and this is very comfortable. But of course, if black plays the invasion, which is probably what Park was worried about, white can still fight like this. So this is still a very chaotic fight, but I think this is slightly easier to manage for white than in the actual game. But what white played was totally okay. It's just that it gets make the game a little bit more chaotic. So black approaches, and now white tries to connect the group versus basically to the big group. Black Ataris, white Ataris on top, and this is black's Sente, so black jumps from the outside, looking at the connection problems over here and build on the top side. At this point, the game is still super chaotic. If you check with AI, it will say, well, Park is leading the game by quite a bit. Not a decisive lead, but this is a better game for white. But from a human perspective, this is still super chaotic. There's a giant moyo that black has over here. There's some connection issues that white has to deal with over here. And there's a stone hanging over here. So the game is still very chaotic for human players, definitely. So at this point, there are many moves that are great choices for white. For example, white can play the very standard shoulder hit and then just play out this sequence, which is very common, and just break black's moyo. And that would be more or less a equal game or a slightly better game for white. That's a simple solution. Another classical invasion point is this move, basically capping black stone on the third line and also looking at invading towards the right side. In the actual game, Park also played a very nice move. This is looking at a ladder breaker. So against this move, black plays the jump, making sure the ladder still doesn't work. Okay, so if you play like this, the ladder is still not going to work for you because black has these Atari here. And this also threatens white's stone over here. White decides to play the small knight. So not only breaks black's moyo, but also it's looking at some aji that black has in the corner. Black jumps. It's looking at the cutting point. This is a very nice move, giving black his base, but also looking at the cutting point. And now white plays the Kosumi. So instead of directly worrying about this group over here, white also has to watch out. There's constantly some sort of attach cutting white off and causing problems here. So white has to worry about it, and then he decides to play the Kosumi. Black squeeze, white connects, and now black starts a very fierce attack onto white's two stones. White attaches, black extends, and now white attaches into the corner. A very nice move. It's looking at, it's basically building a little bit of aji before running out. So black extends, and now white jumps out. Black pushes, breaking white's shape, and also making sure that this stone is feeling very awkward. So before we move on with the game, let me just briefly present a little bit of what's going on with the life and death over here. So if a white pushes, black will protect the eye. If white breaks the eye, white will connect, and there's a me eye, so black has an eye over here. And when white wedges, black will just respond, and it looks like black doesn't have an eye locally after white throws in like this, but because of this move is a sente looking at a cutting point here, therefore this group will live with no problem. So with that in mind, then we can understand why when white plays the hane here, black plays this weird extension move because that, white, you can pretty much say that white has a stone over here, and therefore if you block over here, there's a life and death issue that black doesn't want to get into. So black plays the shape move, and now white plays a very nice move. It's looking at the ladder, but also looking at the Kosumi and cutting black off. Yang Kaiwen realizes that he's slightly behind, and therefore he plays very aggressive, trying to claim all the territory in here. White attaches, black goes down, and now white plays the Kosumi, completely cutting black off. And this is really a fight of life and death for both players. Yang Kaiwen pushes and cuts, and there's a ton of calculations that both players need to make at this point, and both players are probably in Boyomi at this stage of the game. So here, let's just show the audience a little bit of what they read out. So of course, the first intuition is for white to just like kill black in here. If black plays the Kosumi, white is going to push, black cuts, and white now connects. Now here, there is a push over here. If black blocks over here, white can Atari. This would extend white liberty, And then when white plays on top, we can tell this is, let's just play it out, right? We can tell white is basically winning by 1 liberty, and that's game over for black. And of course, if black turns here, there's a problem. So black is collapsing as well. So black cannot play the tiger's mouth. So how come Park didn't play this move? Well, Park was afraid of black simply connecting. The simple connecting is a problem. So if you play over here, then white is not able to get the Atari in Sente, and therefore white only has 3 liberties. When you play like this, I can just basically kill white inside, and now black is quicker with his, he's winning by 1 liberty, and it's time for white to resign. So that's just a very oversimplified way of showing you that this is what Park was worried about. But actually, Park could have played this complex fight as well, and I'm pretty sure Park has read it out in the game, but he just couldn't. He just couldn't calculate all the variations, because this is looking quite dangerous for white as well. Black and Hani here, threatening the group over here, forcing white to cut. And then once black gets a few moves here, he can come back and try to kill white over here. And therefore, this is just complete chaos, and it's impossible for either players to read it out within 60 seconds, which is their Boyomi time. So Park decided to not take the risk. Okay, so in the actual game, he just comes back and captures the stone, which is perfectly fine. It's a very safe move, and it's probably what AI recommended as well. Black now peeps. White plays an exchange in the corner and then connect in the center. Black now caps white inside. So here, this game is extremely complex at this point, and it's quite exciting. Let's say, for example, if white tactically, so this Tetsuji is what Park has played, but this is kind of like backing down. Another very fierce variation is for white to just play very directly, right? You can play like this, and this is all forced, and now white can play this move to squeeze black's liberty, and that locally black is dead. The problem is black is able to get all these moves in Sente. After all of these is in Sente, black can now come back and play the tiger's mouth. And now the problem we were talking about previously is that, is this group alive? And that's a very big question. It all comes down to a life and death problem. And the answer is we don't know. We really don't know whether white is alive or not here. This is just a life and death problem that is way beyond my ability. And then when I was watching the professional commentary, they say it's beyond their ability. That shows you how difficult this life and death problem is in here. So Park did not want to gamble the final game with a life and death problem. And therefore, he decided to play a move that will help white escape. But since white is able to escape, that means black is also able to escape with Atari. White pushes out, and then black captures. So here, it's time for white to do something in the corner, obviously. Otherwise, black would wedge here and just kill everything, and that's not acceptable. So in the actual game, Park decides to play the Kosumi into the corner. So here, a better move for white to play is probably just play the tiger's mouth, forcing black to connect, and then he blocks on the second line. And then, now this move is obviously Sente towards corner, so black needs to spend another move to secure the corner territory. So now white has the chance to play a Sente on the outside and then go into a fairly comfortable endgame for white. Still plenty of chances for both players like this. In the actual game, Park played a Kosumi. So this is a mistake from Park, but it's not fatal yet. But Park is not having... Basically, Park, I think at this point, he misread a sequence, and you can tell from this move. Next up, we have Yang Ataris in the corner. Of course, black cannot play something like this because white plays a tiger's mouth. This is a ko in the corner, and black cannot fight this ko. Black needs Blacks need to play a clean kill in the corner to get into a fairly even endgame. Black Ataris, white Ataris, and then capture. And at this point, black attaches on the second line, trying to lift the corner. When black Ataris on top, this is where... so at this point, the sequence is already not great for white, because trying to struggle to live in the corner does not work tactically, because if you connect, there's definitely like issues like black and wedge, and white just doesn't have enough ice space to live. So here the correct idea for Park is still to come back and play the Tiger's Mouth, and this would still be okay for Park, although this becomes really, really close. So if white plays this, at least he can get some of the stones back. It's still very complicated. But in the actual game, very surprisingly, Park has misread completely. And he played the bumping move. So I'm not exactly sure what Park has misread. But after Yang wedges here, the game is over for Park. The reason this is a winning move, or this just makes the game over, is because white is completely dead inside. Maybe what Park was reading was that, okay, well, I can Atari, you connect, I Atari, you connect, and then I have this Hane. Okay, so it looks like black is captured, but then maybe he forgot that there is an Atari over here, and white is dead. So even if you get this Atari, I capture, and there's a Miai, which means that white is just all dead. Everything is dead here. So if you connect like this, sure, you got these 3 stones back, but this is not going to compensate this plus the whole corner. So I think that's what I'm guessing what Park has misread. I personally can't believe it, because it's not very hard to calculate this stuff. But maybe under pressure, or maybe Park is just very tired at this point, he made a blunder like this. So after the wedge, tactically, there's no way for white to live, and therefore that's a huge amount of territory lost. Okay, so yeah, unfortunately, we would have seen a very close endgame if Park did not blunder like this, but I guess there's no if when it comes to Go games. So at this point, Park Ataris, black connects, and then Park tries with this triangle move, but then it's countered by black's Hane, so still no way for white to live. And white decides to build a very giant center over here. Black Ataris, white connects, and now black Ataris from here, white connects. It looks like white gained a lot of territory, but when black extends, the group on the right side is in trouble. So if Park could live this group with dignity, meaning with some points, this is still a close game. But this is not going to be possible because the stone is here and there's a leak on the second line. So living this group in a clean fashion is already impossible. And at this point, I think the commentator said that the Park Junghwan was crying while this game was still going on. You can tell how sad he feels about this blunder over here. And then you can also tell that he has just mentally collapsed at this point. Because of the next move, you can see that blocking here is definitely a blunder when it comes to the life and death. A more resilient move is for white to play a shape move. This move would give white more chances to live. Of course, this is still a losing game because... so first of all, if Yang Kaiwen has enough time to read out this life and death, this is probably a clean kill for black. But even if he doesn't read it out and he plays the most, the most obvious way, then he can turn here and then turn here and then just break the eye like this. So this is like playing without any Tsuji and just playing like an amateur level player. White has to Hane, black blocks, and white extends down. And then if you want to solve this life and death problem by yourself, go ahead and do it. I think I talked about a similar problem, but the correct move is for black to throwing like this. White is going to clamp, black Ataris, white connects, and this becomes a ko alive in the corner. So like this would also be a losing game for white because this ko is basically a picnic ko for black. But what Park played in the actual game was just shocking because this is absolutely like a hopeless move to try to live because of course black can just jump in and white doesn't have enough ice space and therefore is dead. So the game is over at this point, but Park played a few moves just to basically calm himself down, and sometimes we just need time to adjust ourselves. And at this point, when Yang Kaiwen plays the squeeze here, this is a sente, as we have talked about, that's when Park decided to resign. So here, if white connects, black can make an eye here, so we can see the clearly two eyes. So this group is dead, the corner is dead. That's a huge losing game for Park, but I think the game already ended when Park played this blunder, and after the wedge, the game is just hopeless for Park. So I think this is very sad for Park Junghwan, and like he's played a fantastic game until this moment. Until this moment, he has played very accurately, a lot of great moves, a lot of control over the game, but one blunder and he just lost the game. And of course, we would like to congratulate Yang Kaiwen for becoming a world champion for the first time, and I hope he can get more world champion titles in the future. And as always, thank you very much for tuning in. I'm off this week for a 1-week vacation to do some fishing trips and, of course, making more Go related content. I'm very happy that I got the time to cover this game that just happened yesterday, and I think a lot of people watching this game. So I'm glad that I'm able to provide a full English commentary on all the important points. This commentary is backed by a professional commentary in China. So if you'd like to support my work, you can check out my Patreon page as well. Link is down in the description. And I'll see you guys in the next one.